Dr. Sleep is directed by Mike Flanagan, the creator of the Netflix series Haunting of Hill House, and the director of the Netflix film Gerald's Game, and is based off of the beloved Stephen King novel of the same name, which is a sequel to The Shining, one of King's most well-known novels, that was adapted by Stanley Kubrick into one of my favorite movies to watch around Halloween. Actually, I'm not even a fan of horror. That's my favorite horror movie of all time. And since I say that, I must mention I never saw The Shining until I met my wife, until she showed it to me the year that I met her, like I think a couple of weeks after we started dating, because it was around Halloween time. So I gotta give her props for that, and you know, just to put it out there, because I know if she watches this video, she'll be like, hey, you wouldn't even know about it being so good if I didn't show it to you, so this is for her. Okay, anyway, Dr. Sleep follows an older Danny Torrance who starts the film off as an alcoholic drifter using booze to dull the traumatic memories from his past, as well as his abilities, and after a while, Danny becomes aware of this young girl who has similar abilities to him, only she's far more powerful, and he's not the only one to notice her being there, and she's already been noticed by a nomadic group of quasi-immortal hunters who feed off of people with such power. Before I get into my thoughts on the film, I first want to remind you guys to hit that like button, and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, let's get into my review of Dr. Sleep. Ewan McGregor shines, pun intended, as Danny. As I mentioned before, he starts off as an alcoholic who's been using his vice because of the PTSD and to quell his powers, but after a while he finds a purpose in life and even a good use for his powers, and McGregor's always been really great, and he's at some of his best in this film. And Rebecca Ferguson is also awesome as Rose the Hat, the leader of the group known as the True Knot, and the girl named Abra that Danny befriends is played by Kyliegh Curran. I'm hoping I'm saying that name correctly, who gives my favorite performance in the entire film. She was a real find. Dr. Sleep wasn't her first role, but only her second, but I'm hoping that this does end up leading to being a breakout role for her. But honestly, I haven't heard anything about her since Dr. Sleep released back in November last year, and right now as I'm sitting, that was like 7 months ago, give or take? Hopefully she's getting some work. The overall story itself is really good. For a film that's just over 2.5 hours, it doesn't really seem to lull very much. It's very engaging seeing how everything plays out with the visual presentation of what the Shining abilities are and what characters can do with it, and also to the fleshing out of the True Knot. A welcome departure from most horror films where the antagonist or the antagonists are just nameless monsters or people that we know little about. These are probably the best, the most fleshed out bad guys in a pure horror flick in years. And the story is a good contrast to The Shining in the way that this is a decades-long, locale-spanning story compared to the well-executed, claustrophobic setting of The Shining in the Overlook Hotel. And there's one part that I have to talk about. This is definitely a spoiler, but here it is. A fair amount of people didn't like the presence of a child murder in this film, where they take a surprise role by Jacob Tremblay, probably one of the best young actors of our generation, and show the True Knot sucking the life out of him. And of course, Tremblay is always amazing, so his performance is truly heart-wrenching. I understand why a lot of people didn't like it, but I liked the inclusion. It didn't feel gratuitous. It felt like it actually served a purpose. The purpose was to just show that these characters truly are the lowest of the low. They are willing to kill a child just for their version of a high. Sure, it's more like food because they'll die without it, but let's be real, there's an aspect to it that's presented as this weird carnivorous and even sexual in nature sort of addiction to it. There are moments where the visual presentation works, like when Mike Flanagan decides to do his own thing and tries to stand out so that his direction isn't compared to Kubrick. But then he also imbues many Kubrickisms throughout, and it gets a little annoying, even if that presentation is awesome to look at. But this also ties into something that bothered me about the film, and that will be my final point. This part is why I have the subtitle in the thumbnail that I do. How to shit on a legacy. Getting the positive out of the way first, I will give the production designers credit. The Overlook Hotel looks amazing. The attention to detail is immaculate. Everything looks amazing just in that sense. But this all is where it begins to feel more like a Kubrick film. Even stealing scenes and shots from that film, including the iconic elevator shot. And what's even worse, getting more into spoilers, I didn't like how the book ended. Never liked the book. I've read the Shining book before, that's what I mean. I read it years ago before I saw Kubrick's film. I don't like the book, I think it's way overhyped. That's maybe one of the reasons why I love the movie. I don't know, it was a departure from everything. But, so anyway, in the movie, after defeating Rose, Danny, having released the Ghosts of the Overlook, and just so that they can defeat Rose, he becomes possessed by them, and, like his father was. And after being able to regain control, he locks himself in the boiler room and burns down the hotel with him in it. Now, I recognize that for some reason, not having read the novel for Dr. Sleep, so I asked my wife if that happened, since she owns the book and she loves the book. She told me no. Eventually, I remembered where that was from. So for those of you who haven't seen The Shining, you've probably guessed this is another spoiler warning, yippee. At the end of the Shining novel, Jack Torrance is possessed by the hotel and dies in a boiler room explosion. In the movie, he dies in the bitter cold while stuck in a hedge maze because he was chasing after his son trying to kill him. They took the part of the original novel for The Shining and replaced the ending of Dr. Sleep with it. Flanagan has said that he wanted to try to reconcile the differences between the Shining novel and the film, but I saw this movie and it felt like something more. Now, I'm not going to say that this is what happened, but this is what the ending of Dr. Sleep made me think. Stephen King has always been upfront about his hatred of Kubrick's film and how much it was changed from his story, and even went to the point where he produced a TV miniseries that was more closely tied to the novel, which sucked, by the way. That's a shitty-ass TV miniseries. I don't care what anybody says. Just like, it sucked, just like the novel did. But anyway, I'm gonna try and be fair and not shit on that anymore. But I'm probably gonna fail. Anyway, King has always been a fucking crybaby about his properties, especially when people decide to take artistic liberties with his material, unless he allows it personally, or the filmmakers are able to convince him that he's okay with it. Walking out of Dr. Sleep, it felt like King had told them to make that ending just so that he could on the legacy of a beloved film that he didn't like because he's a fucking petty. Now again, it's likely that he didn't do that, but with what little I believe in headcanon, the way that he conducts himself in person makes it seem really believable, and I could honestly believe if that ever came out and it was like, yeah, no, you're not making this unless you completely retcon, like, the first movie. Like, be as close to it as you can, even revering it with a lot of stuff, but I want you to on its legacy. Anyway, I'm done rambling and bitching and griping and complaining. So what did I think about Dr. Sleep overall? Well, you guys could probably tell that I am at some level of passionate when it comes to my opinion on the film. Overall, it was a very well-made film, and I enjoyed it immensely. I think I even enjoyed it more than my wife did. I remember her not enjoying this film, like, almost at all. But once we get to the Overlook Hotel, everything is thrown out the window, and the entire film's existence to me became pointless, and it saddens me that I don't want to recommend this film to you guys, despite my enjoyment, but I just can't. It probably wouldn't have bothered me as much if I didn't have an attachment to Kubrick's Shining, But it still would have bothered me even then, just not as much. But yeah, don't recommend it, and with that, my review ends here. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to my thoughts on this particular film. I hope you guys enjoyed my suffering as I was recounting everything. I seriously appreciate you guys watching this video. Anyway, once again, don't forget to hit that like button, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And as always, farewell until the next video, all of you casual moviegoers and movie fans alike, and keep on being awesome, my friends.